Good evening, everyone. We just want to welcome you to the Innovation in Surgery Pitch Club tonight. We're excited to see that once again, we have a good number of you that have joined us for many pitch clubs before and are back again to continue to see new innovation and technology. And for those of you that this is your first time, welcome. We have a great evening in store for you, three incredible companies that all have very different solutions that ultimately drive to the same outcome, which is to improve surgical processes and outcomes for patients. I do want to take just a minute to tell those of you that are new to Pitch Club and maybe don't know as much about AngelMD. Let me take a second to tell you about AngelMD as well as our Pitch Club. So AngelMD is a community that is centered around the mission of advancing healthcare innovation. Central to our community is the largest network of medical startups, combined with tens of thousands of physicians and dentists. This is complemented by a growing network of investors from high net worth individuals, family offices, corporate investors, and other players that are interested in the healthcare innovation space. And so we're pleased to welcome representatives from each of those groups tonight. Pitch Club is something that we host every 2 weeks, and we rotate through different specialties so that we can see the variety of innovation that is happening today in healthcare. And part of our goal is we want to stimulate engagement within the community. We want to be getting our clinicians and our startups together and more aware of each other and being able to leverage perspectives and inputs from both. So first, we do want to provide feedback to these companies. They've taken a lot of time to refine their presentations for you as their target audience, and they would love your feedback because their goal is to drive a successful company. We believe also that the voice of the clinician is critical in healthcare innovation. And so we ask that you bring your opinions both through the questions after each of the presentations and also by completing the poll. I do want to let you know that tonight, so that we have the ability to do polls that will provide good, valuable information to our companies, we are using Poll Everywhere. We will provide a link that you can go to a website and be able to provide answers to all of these questions. Second, we do want to give exposure to these companies, exposure to a broader audience, give them sessions and opportunities to get in front of people. A lot of times their hope is to be able to get people that want to engage more, clinicians that want to engage more with them. Sometimes it's just about driving awareness. And so that's part of our goal. And then the last is we want to have a fun evening for everyone, helping you be able to see what's going on in entrepreneurship and to challenge our presenters with great questions. So there's lots of ways to get involved with AngelMD. We're going to share information with you in our follow-up email, which will come out tomorrow. We will also, throughout the event, have links and information that will share. All of these we provide in the follow-up email as well, in case you're not able to copy it from the chat. And then the last thing is, following our presentations tonight, we will have a half an hour that you can either join tables with the companies that are presenting and further the conversation with them, because we usually don't get to all of your questions. Or there's also opportunities to network with other people who are in attendance, connect with other physicians you haven't seen in a while, or meet new people. So we hope you'll take full advantage of all of it. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Katie Richardson, our VP of Clinical Operations and the executive producer of this event. Dr. Katie.
Thanks, Jennifer. Welcome, everyone. We are super excited to see everyone here this evening for our AngelMD Pitch Club Innovations in Surgery. I know we have many surgeons and other healthcare providers that have joined us this evening. And as Jennifer mentioned, we really look forward to getting your feedback on these three companies, because we have three great companies that are going to be presenting for us this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. We are going to start with Dr. Lanita Williamson, and she is the founder and CEO of a company called Procedure Card. And Dr. Williamson's really, this idea was born out of frustration that she encountered as a surgeon. So Lanita, go ahead and share your slides and we'll let you get started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lanita Williamson. I'm an orthopedic surgeon and the founder and CEO of Procedure Card.
One of the things that I was going to say that I love is that Dr. Williamson is joining us. We have people joining from all over, and she happens to be joining us this evening from Hawaii. Lucky girl. And we'll let you go ahead and get started now that you have your slides up.
Thank you for that. My first time using AirMeet. My name is Lanita Williamson. I'm an orthopedic surgeon and the founder and CEO of Procedure Card. Procedure Card is a surgical preference card management system, and it was born out of the frustration of being in the operating room for 25 years and solving a global problem, which is inaccurate surgical preference cards. The problem and our solution. Well, most surgical preference cards and their systems are just outdated. Many times the cards are just plain old wrong and inaccurate. In UCSF in 2015, they did a study with one department in neurosurgery. And what they did is they looked at their surgical preference cards and they found that they wasted an average of $653 per case. That added up to $2.7 million a year in waste. And what I mean by waste is having an inaccurate card, pulling and opening the item on the card, realizing you don't need it, and then discarding an unused product. So when you have an inaccurate card, you are losing money. One of the things that we found in our market research was the main pain point in this operating room was the inability to update an inaccurate card. And our solution, which is a lot different than a lot of our competitors, is we allow you to update your surgical preference card in real time. So on the bottom of the slide, it might be a little busy, but this is my surgical preference card for carpal tunnel release. And on there is a cordless drill. And I promise I will never use a drill for carpal tunnel.
Go ahead and...
it's a 20, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry.
Oh.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought maybe you needed to advance, but you're good.
Oh, no. So basically, this is a card that was generated on a Cerner-based preference card system. That's a 20-year-old card, and it's still wrong. One of the problems we solved also is access to the surgical preference card. Our software platform allows 24/7, 365 access to the surgical preference card on any connected device. And unlike our competitors who have to rely on using a preference card system in the hospital, on the hospital servers, the ability to access the card and update the card makes it easy to update the card, and then the card is more accurate. So it's a domino effect. And finally, antiquated technology. Most of the ambulatory surgery centers are still using pencil and paper. So as a result of these problems, we find that most of the staff is mad and most of the cards are bad. The solution, Procedure Card, is a cloud-based platform. We're HIPAA compliant. There's no PHI in there. The main problem we solve is the ability to update the card in real time. Another feature that makes us unique is we can share your card. So just invite any member of your surgical team to the app, and you can share your cards with those team members. Surgeons can also share those cards at different facilities, so a hospital chain can have an accurate surgical preference card at Hospital A, update their card and have the same update and changes made for Hospital B. Surgical Procedure Card is based on a tiered subscription model, and we base that on the number of cards in your deck. It can be used throughout the surgical journey from scheduling the case to billing. And again, we also allow access to all the team members, but most members can just read a card. Some can edit and update the card, and very few have admin access. So this differential permission allows us to give the card to everyone and then control access. And the feature everyone loves is a template library. So if you have an appendectomy at 2 o'clock, go to the library, pull the appendectomy card, make a few changes for your surgeon, and you have a card within minutes. And on this print version of the card, you can see that we've highlighted the hold feature. So the hold feature means get the item, have it in the room, so the nurse doesn't have to run around during the case to go and retrieve supplies. But more importantly, have it in the room, don't open it. Don't open it if you don't need it. And that saves the waste that we talked about earlier, where you're opening supplies and discarding them unused. And then finally, a custom feature for some of our clients, they've asked for a pull and used category. And the nurses can use this to simply mark off what that was really used. And in older systems, they have to spend time at the end of the case marking in the margins what they really did. And at the end of the case, the nurse does not want to be a bookkeeper, but they are. They're scribbling what was really used, and it takes away from the patient. They're trying to wake the patient up, transfer to recovery room, and give report of vital patient information. And instead, they're doing bookkeeping duties. And we solve that. Why you need us? We have a range of services for the small ambulatory surgery centers where our users can sign in and use a card within minutes. We also have services for the enterprise level client with custom features, white labeling, and a host of customer service features. But again, why you need us is you can update your cards real time. You can use it across facilities and share your card. All the functions are in the app, so you don't have to click away from the app to email or get information. And there are no hidden fees. So they're in-app purchases that doesn't exist. And we have a great team that provides easy onboarding. And we also offer card mapping services so that the facilities can take their cards and push them into our app, as well as data entry services. In our roadmap, this started out as an idea in the operating room in 2016. We found that the market size was more than 9,600 ambulatory surgery centers and about 225,000 hospitals. And that's just in the United States. This is a global problem. Our go-to-market, we found that the ambulatory surgery centers are the low-hanging fruit. They are often physician-owned. It's easy to get in front of the decision makers, and most of them do not have a surgical preference card that's digital. At this point, we're looking at our traction, and that's our main focus now. And we hope to raise money in the near future. And with that, we would like to be able to grow our team. So my name is Lanita Williamson. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but I'm a full-time founder of ProcedureCart.com, a surgical preference card management system that allows easy real-time update and saves money, time, and improves patient care. Here is my contact information, and thank you for your time.
Lanita, thank you so much for telling us all about Procedure Card and for being here tonight. I'm super excited to have you. We have several questions from the audience, but I'm going to start with one of my own. Talk a little bit more about what differentiates you from your competitors. And I know you mentioned the paper preference card or showed a picture of it, but I know there are other digital solutions out there too. So tell us a little bit more about what differentiates you.
Well, what makes us different is that we allow you to update the card in real time. One other feature that makes us stand out is that you can share your card with other team members at other facilities. And when you look at app-based software, it's usually siloed to that one user, and you have to email things and text things to share data. One of the other things is that we offer a complete package. So everything from that allows you to schedule to go all the way to billing.
Great. Also, you know, we had one question from our audience around what are your trial sites? What are your current customers saying? What's the real world feedback? And I would add on to that, have you done any measuring of improvements in efficiency or reductions in cost? And if not, are you planning on doing that in the future?
Okay, let me tackle the beginning. Well, the real life feedback, one example is a new surgeon in town used our platform just to start his practice, and he was able to do a reverse total shoulder in 45 minutes, having everything he needed, and blew everyone away. So for the new surgeons, instead of saying, oh, we'll give you Dr. Jones's card, and then you have to struggle with things that aren't your preferences, that really helped his practice and improved his patient outcomes. And another part of the question.
I was just asking about, have you measured any improvements in efficiency or reduction in costs? And if not, are you planning on doing that in the future?
Well, we're working on a case study with one of our enterprise clients to do some measurements of outcomes and case costing, and hopefully see how they've been able to streamline their cards. Because one other feature you can do, you can compare surgeons and their costs, and then maybe pull in the outliers, because a lot of us don't know when we use an expensive thing unless we're told. We just like what we like. But many of us
Right.
are adaptable and can use less expensive items that do the same job.
Great. So a couple of other questions from our audience. This product seems very useful. What IP prevents others from copying what you're doing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that was one of the first things we did, was look at the legal part of this and sharing it with attorneys that are IP attorneys. We are not an iPhone. We have not created something that unique. We essentially have a list system that's very customized and specific for this field. And so the way we can't really patent what we have created, but the way we stay ahead is continuous iterations and innovating and staying ahead of the pack with the customer service and the feedback loop from our clients of what they want and what they want now.
Great. So a couple additional questions about features. Does this integrate with EMRs? And if not, are you planning on doing that in the future?
We recoded our app earlier this year into a more modern language, with the goal of being able to have APIs with larger hospital systems. So we are capable of that, and we'll be running some pilot studies soon. But we are in the Epic Apple Orchard sandbox, and are looking to integrate how we would have to integrate with other large hospital systems.
Great. And another question around a little bit more around your cost structure and your revenue model. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, our cost structure, it's tiered based. So we found that if we charged per user, that people could just share their login, and that really wouldn't help us. So we have a tiered structure based on the number of surgical preference cards. I believe the lowest tier is 50, and that's fine for a small place. And then gradually going up in the number of cards in your organization. And as the tier increases, there are also more customizable features, more things that we offer. And then the enterprise model is just a custom sit down and discuss what it is you need, and we can work with our developers on the time and the cost. So that's what we have now, a tier-based subscription model.
That's fantastic. I know for those of you in our audience, we have a ton of questions tonight for Dr. Williamson and Procedure Card, but we are out of time, and we're going to have to move on to the polling section for Dr. Williamson. Again, for those of you that are in our audience tonight, our CEOs and founders really appreciate your feedback. And so we're going to put up some poll questions, and we would love for you to answer those. Again, for me, this popped up right on my screen to click on, and you can answer those questions. But again, Dr. Williamson, thank you so much for being here tonight. And so I would love to introduce Jeff Levine, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Advanced Scanners. And he's going to tell us about some really cool new technology. Jeff, go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a new technology for everybody. So I'll jump right in. And I don't feel like I've got to tell this audience that the United States is really on the verge of the greatest adoption of technology that the healthcare system has ever seen. Robotics, artificial intelligence, AR and VR platforms, medical imaging, they're all part of this developing infrastructure for digital surgery. And what you're looking at here is a surgical navigation system. This monitor, it displays a two-dimensional views of a 3D map of the spine that was created using the preoperative scan. These are infrared eyes, and they see these little reflective spheres over here, and they're able to look at those and infer the position and orientation of the tool so that it can superimpose that image on the map. And this is what the surgeons look at, this display, to track the position of the tools relative to the patient during surgery. There's a question: what if the map is wrong? Well, the map can become wrong for a few reasons. In this example, an MRI was used to create a 3D map of the patient's brain prior to beginning open brain surgery. But this is what the brain looks like about halfway through the procedure. This is more than an inch of shift. This is called intraoperative shift. And if the surgeon would rely solely on the navigation system, we'd completely miss the tumor and remove healthy brain tissue. This is a problem. This is a problem in every single open brain surgery due to changes in pressure and fluid loss. This is a problem in every single open brain case, and procedures are paused while the surgical team has to take new images, if they've got an intraoperative MRI, and manually update the map. Now, according to the FDA, warnings and recalls, this is a major safety issue. And what they state is that this problem is in navigation systems, is leading to patient deaths, life-threatening injuries, and they go on and on to list more and more bad outcomes. And that's why we invented this optical scanner and machine vision platform. It captures intraoperative time series data on the 3D position and surface characteristics of patient anatomy. We do this in vivo, touch-free, radiation-free, and in real time. So far, we've got 2 patents issued, 15 pending, and more than 400 claims that protect our hardware, methods of analysis, and uses in medicine. Here's an example of how this might work. You imagine we've got a real patient on the left, but all I'm showing you is one bone, one vertebrae. And on the right side is going to be the surgical navigation system. So first thing we do is we take a scan, and that shows up over here. And then we're able to fit that to the patient's preoperative image and superimpose the patient's anatomy. So now when the surgeon puts the pointer of his tool on the tip of the bone, it shows up in the navigation on the tip of the bone. But if that bone moves, I know this is a dramatic movement, but if the bone were to move, on the right, the image would not change. The machine is only seeing the tool. It still thinks the vertebrae where it was. And now if the surgeon goes and touches the new position, it's going to show on the right that he's not actually touching. And this is very noticeable. But our very next scan is going to capture the new position of the patient's anatomy and adjust the imaging so that it is correct again. This will be happening, in under a second by the time we get to the operating room. And that means, again, the surgeon can go right back to relying on the navigation system. It will be accurate. So let's talk about a couple of other things that happen. This is a picture of how they do the current standard of care in surgical navigation. This is Medtronic's Stealth Station. And this unit has an error on the order of millimeters, usually 2 to 4 millimeters through repeated processes. What we have shown is that optical scans can consistently improve the initial patient registration by 2 orders of magnitude. And this is important because this is the baseline error for digital surgery. It never gets any better than this. These are 2 scans taken of a cadaver brain. They're 15 minutes apart. Can you tell the difference? Our scanner can. It digitizes those images with 200 micron resolution in all 3 directions, compares them, and this is an example of the output. This is a false color map. So in the red shows where the brain has moved more than a millimeter, cyan's about half a millimeter, blue hasn't moved at all. And this is just a 15-minute change in position. We've also shown that while we can track both soft and rigid anatomy, we are also able to track the spheres, so we can alert the surgeons when registration might be lost to movement of one of these tracking devices. All of the things I've shown you have been done in coordination with Medtronic. We've got an official industry collaboration with them where we are now using their machines. They sent us a couple and we're playing with them in our space and actually showing our navigation with our data on their systems. We started this company in 2017, filed our IP, entered a whole bunch of contests. We won everything across the board. We participated in everything. And in 2019, we did that cadaver study that I showed. We won a bunch of other awards, both for the technology as well as our proposed solutions. We raised a seed round. In 2020, we raised a second seed round. We did our first in human by starting a relationship with HCA Healthcare St. David's hospitals here in Austin. We have approved protocols and IRBs for spine and brain cases. Medline helped us out with that by providing our drapes and helping us with sterility. And I already mentioned the Medtronic agreement. In 2021, we've been concentrating on our beta. We're turning this alpha model that's been used into the unit that we're actually going to submit to the FDA. We are lighting up a bunch of additional locations for clinical trials so we can play with our beta in that. And then in 2022, we'll submit this to the FDA for a 510K for use in neuro cases. Over the next few years, software updates and maybe some modifications to the embodiment will introduce our solutions for ENT, ortho, optical characterization of the tissue, as well as informing AI models. Usually around the time that you get your 510K approved, we expect to start being courted by every company that makes a navigation system or a device that relies on the navigation for accuracy. These companies could be potential acquirers of the whole company or verticals or marketing partners as well, development partners. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I've got multiple exits. I'm a former combatives officer for the U.S. Army. My co-founder, Dr. Aaron Bernstein, invented this technology. He's an internationally recognized expert in optical physics and engineering. Two of our key, of our thought leaders are Dr. Mark Lee. He's the chair of neurosurgery at West Virginia University. He's the one that pointed Aaron at this problem and implored him to solve it. It is the bane of his existence. And one of our earliest investors just recently joined the board, another neurosurgeon, Dr. Teo Dagi. He's got a career of introducing products in the neurological space. Currently, we've got 8 full-time members, and if you round out our board and advisors, we've got it all covered. I've got a 20-year veteran supporting navigation systems in the field. I've got regulatory experts with 25 years experience in medical devices, commercialization, governance. Our finance advisors, a former controller for Medtronic. So this is our team. We're anxious and ready to go deliver this product and start saving lives for patients and making surgeons' life easier. I would love to talk with anybody in the audience about their interest in the technology or possible use cases for this in their own fields. Thank you very much.
Great, Jeff. Thank you so much. Look at all those hand clapping. I mean, I love the the award there. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is very cool technology, and I'll admit, Mike and I spend a lot of time with our entrepreneurs, our CEOs, and our founders prior to the actual pitch club. And it takes a while to understand your technology. So let's break it down a little bit. What is it about your optical imaging system that differentiates you from a traditional camera?
Okay, so a camera is part of the hardware that makes up our system. But what allows us to get the 3D data is really the patented, it's called an apparatus, a method and apparatus for scanning. So it's the geometry, and we built some custom parts. We have a custom method of illumination. We have a unique way of casting very sharp shadows that makes this a very light, inexpensive, low overhead device to make, but uniquely sensitive to data. So like our secret sauce is in the hardware, and we're developing analytics around it so that it becomes useful in the operating room. But that's our competitive advantage, and we get signals that other devices do not get, period.
All right. And I want to touch on one other thing, because when you were in your timeline, you mentioned something called optical characterization and then AI training of this device in the future. Can you talk more about that?
Briefly. So we're focused on delivering these 3D solutions, but one of the other things that our scanner is uniquely capable of doing is it's sensitive to optical properties that have been used in the lab for many years to diagnose tissue. So we're getting that, and in real time with the scans that we're taking now, and we're able to analyze that data. We're doing it after the fact now. We can automate it, but it will allow us to define tumor margins and differentiate tissue in vivo during the surgery. And this
Wow.
will, a couple of years before something's out there, but 10 years from now and a PMA away, we could be actually diagnosing tissue in real time during procedures.
Wow. All right.
you asked about AI. We're collecting unique time series data on all of these procedures that we're in. So every time they take a scan, we get the data. So over tens and hundreds of thousands of cases, even in our just few years, we built up a database that can be used to train AI models to run robots and do preoperative planning.
Wow. I mean, this sounds, I would say, I'm not a surgeon, but too good to be true, right?
I hate hearing that. It's true. It's true.
All right. Very good. Very good. So a couple of questions from our audience. One, does this use any radiation? So what is the risk to the patient? And then another question, again, around how this works. Is this a surface scan or does it penetrate into deeper layers?
Okay. So the first question was radiation. We are radiation free. What we do is we bathe the patient in white light and we cast a shadow over the area we're scanning. So it is perfectly safe. And one of the big benefits of our device is it replaces the need for intraoperative x-rays and CT scans, which saves the surgical team.
For sure.
Your second question, we are a surface scanner. And depending on what the surface is, like anatomy, we can maybe get a millimeter or 2 or 3 deep, depending on the wavelengths of light that we choose to use. But as a surface scanner for rigid tissue, obviously, if I can spot a little bit, I know exactly where everything is. When you're looking at the brain, what's going on in the volume is certainly relevant and important. And the surface data alone is not a quite complete solution. There are existing biomechanical models of the brain that are out in the world. We're building our own, and this will be married with the patient's preoperative MRI. So as I have this biomechanical model of the brain, I know the bottom doesn't move. I know where the brainstem is, it doesn't move. And the area of greatest movement is the surface. And by having data on that, we're able to use that as a boundary condition and update this biomechanical model of the brain and recreate an entire MRI, volume included, and put that up. This replaces what the surgeon does in their head right now. They take the measurement at a couple of spots on that heat map, and you can see they differ greatly depending on where they decide to touch. They take a couple of reference points, and then they use their imagination, and after a while, get pretty good at it. But in the meantime, it's not going to be good as the million points or whatever we take on that surface scan and the computer-based models analysis in real time. We're going to make their life much easier.
I love it. So let me ask you a couple of questions around integration. So one question really was about, do you integrate into current navigation platforms, or is this only for use with Medtronic? So that's one portion of this question. And then another question, do you foresee this being integrated into robotic surgical systems in the future?
Okay, so this is a standalone piece of hardware. And what we do is we output DICOM files, which are what all the digital products in the operating room use for navigation. So each of the navigation systems, Medtronic, Stryker, BrainLab, they all have their own interface. So the benefit of us working with Medtronic and vice versa is they're the first one we built an interface with. So we're now navigating through the navigation system. We replaced those 2 infrared eyes. In some cases, they're still there now. One day we might replace them completely, but right now we can work with any device. And there are other devices like the surgical microscope, which does VR, overlays. And if you look at them now, they're always a little off, right? They're never perfectly aligned, and that's because the registration's off. And so even VR systems, microscopes, and things like that, we can help make them accurate and maybe allow them to bypass the need for a surgical navigation system when they're looking directly at the tissue. We think that's a potential benefit there.
Wow.
And
I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Remind me the second part of your question.
It really was around whether it's going to be integrated into, or do you see this being integrated into robotic surgical systems in the future?
So this should be on the tip of a robot. Again, we can miniaturize it. We'll build an endoscopic version, and it should be absolutely on the tip of a robot. It'll get the best resolution, and now the robots can kind of be automated because they'll see and notice changes in anatomy.
Great.
We'll help automate
Jeff,
them.
Yeah, this seems very cool, and I will tell you a lot more questions in our Q&A. I hope folks will stick around to be able to come to our networking lounge once we're done with all the pitches, because I know Jeff would be very happy to answer all of these questions. But thank you so much for being here tonight and for sharing advanced scanners with us.
My pleasure.
A number of companies that have been applying to present at Pitch Club has been growing and growing every week. And so it's become really difficult for us to choose only 3 to pitch live. Therefore, as Jennifer mentioned, we do our Pitch Club extension videos to give more innovators and entrepreneurs the opportunity to tell us about their products, which has been really fun. These are all good problems to have, but we're glad that we have the ability to give them the stage for a little bit as well, just not on our live broadcast. So I am going to bring to the stage our last pitch presenter of the evening. So we have Dr. Barum Gadari, who is the founder of a company called Plasbotics. And Dr. Gadari is, again, the founder and innovator of this company, and he is going to tell us all about it because it's very exciting. Go ahead and share your slides, and we're excited to hear.
Good evening, everyone, and it was great to follow these 2 amazing talks, and can't say enough. I was actually listening to it very intently.
We know that this company is a little earlier than some of our other Pitch Club companies, but we had a very good reason for bringing them on this evening. So I'm going to let Dr. Gadari give his presentation, and he has a very specific ask of our AngelMD community. So wait for that. Go ahead, Dr. Gadari.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to present to your group tonight. It is a great group, and from the 2 talks I've heard, this is amazing to be involved with it. My name is Barum Gadari. I'm a plastic surgeon, 20 years in private practice, and my partner, Dr. Luhovi, is a biomedical engineer and an MD. And we founded Plasbotics to bring a new surgical device to market. Over the last 20 years, as you've seen with Dr. Levine and even the earlier presentation, everything is becoming automated, especially surgical things, even robotics. Soft tissue surgery has really not caught up with that, like intra-abdominal and thoracic surgery. And I've seen over the years, I do a lot of breast reconstructions, and I've seen breast surgeons very frustrated with how many times you hear, I'm never doing this procedure again. Nipple-sparing mastectomies have small incisions, often in uncomfortable position for the surgeon. You just watch them and their assistants working together, and they keep moving their assistants' arms, and sometimes that doesn't work with skin tears and buttonholing the skin. So I was wondering why we can't do robotic surgery to this. This would be such a good thing with the 3D visualization, magnification, and the articulation of the arms. Found out that the one thing that soft tissue has different is you need retraction. Retraction is important in everything you do. Even to use that great tool that Mr. Levine presented, you do have to get past that soft tissue. So soft tissue retraction is important in every procedure. And right now, robotic retractors are just not performing well at all, and if poorly. We're basically applying a analog dial-up internet model to robotic surgery, which is your 5G broadband. And it just doesn't, the 2 don't connect yet, and we need that connection. And that's the problem that we have right now. The system variability, we've made the surgeons become away from the surgeon, but we still have their assistants and their retractors still be attached to the patient. More and more, there are many benefits from that. Not only you get more consistency, you go away from this heavy, cumbersome, complicated retractors that are currently being tried to apply to robotic surgery for soft tissue. And so since surgeons don't have an option, there's less adoption of this until now. So we have come up with, just imagine with us, I know that we are at our early stages. So if you can imagine along with me, a much more sleek, more intuitive, more biomimetic type of retractor, which then takes the assistant away from the field as well. So it does facilitate to be able to have robotic surgery be applied to soft tissue, which we all use everywhere, from the abdomen to the breast, which is I work with mostly. And vacuum-assisted technology has been proven in many different fields. For example, I think everybody's heard about wound vacs, breast pumps, even for obviously breastfeeding moms. Even athletes use cupping. There's many benefits to it. So if we can come up with something that's intuitive, that allows the surgeons to actually do the procedures like a mastectomy as if they were doing it with an open method, kind of like what robotic surgery, when you're doing it through the abdomen, they're blowing up the abdomen, they're creating that tension for them, and they do it very much like laparoscopic surgery, so it's more adaptable. So our model is, instead of pushing the door open, which would be insufflation, is to obviously pull the door open, which would be vacuum assisted. So vacuum lift is our technology. It is way more efficient, more stable, and definitely necessary to bridge that gap between being able to do robotic surgery and apply all these new technologies. And just imagine something like that imaging scanner to be able to see real live imaging as you go through a tumor. Even just imagine a lumpectomy. The one thing that women obviously stress over, and the process is very stressful, is you have a lumpectomy, you wait a week, and then somebody tells you the margin is still positive, you still got to go back. That is, the process even is not good, never mind the diagnosis. So there are two parts to our product. One part is the shell, where you can have, as you see on top on the right, a suction method to be able to move the tissue. And again, just mimic what you normally would do in a surgery so that surgeons are able to adapt to this easily. With that, you can attach imaging, so you can see real-time images. You can attach pathologic things where the lumpectomy site can actually be evaluated at the time of surgery, and if you need to take more, you do more. And the other part would be maybe smaller areas, more fragile areas, where you just need kind of an octopus arm type, very gentle retraction of a tissue that needs to be treated softly. But as a conceptual image on the bottom, you can see just attach the TUMI syringe to a suction in an operating room, and that breast can be moved. And obviously those suction cups can be varying sizes. We are at an early stage. We do have a patent issued for the vacuum shell with this suction cup. I have another one that we have pending. That's the Biomechanical arm that is expected to be issued in early 2022. We have had the luck of having independently subject matter experts at Cleveland Clinic validate this by saying that it's unique and also very promising. These are independent people that we never met, so I take that as a positive sign that even though we're early, I think we can accelerate very fast to be able to provide this to patients and to surgeons. So our timeline kind of is divided by COVID, as most things are these days. Before COVID, we had our patents, one issued, one pending. Cleveland Clinic gave us a light to say, go ahead, and this is a good thing to pursue. So we founded Plasbotics this year, just a few months ago. And Dr. Lohovi has put a lot of effort into obviously creating the awareness. And our 2022 is going to be our big year. We want our functional prototype made. We expect the patent to be granted and move on to regulatory approval, and eventually do a licensing agreement with the big players of the robotic industry, and in the end, have an exit strategy by being acquired. So we have two asks. One of them is funding to be able to get a good team together of an engineer that is forward thinking and be able to put together a prototype that's functional and get proof of concept. And hand in hand with that goes the ability to be able to connect with others in your network and anybody that might be able to help put our team together. So thank you again for listening, and any questions are welcome, and any help is also welcome as well. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Gadari, again, thank you for presenting for us tonight and telling us all about this innovative solution. So you mentioned in your talk that this has implications for all of robotic surgery. What do you think it is about the vacuum retractor that makes it so universally necessary?
Well, if you want to apply robotic surgery, one of them would be just like I was mentioning, is that so that the surgeon can feel like they're just doing surgery as if they were doing open surgery. And one thing that you need is an assistant to basically retract the skin. A lot of times, if you have multiple arms there, they cling together, they're busy. Even today, I was trying to do something, and as an assistant, as great as she was, and I wouldn't do any surgery without her, was getting in the way of doing things. And we were trying to do smaller incisions, be able to injure tissue less. So with the retraction, being able to do automatically and independent of a human being, then the surgeon can focus on the important parts of the surgery, like preserving blood vessels and nerves and less tissue injury.
Great. And I know you guys are still early in the process, but talk a little bit more about where you are in your development process. And you mentioned a couple of ways our network can support you, but I want you to reiterate those as well.
Yeah, the funding to go from this concept that has a lot of traction from the surgeons I talked to, and again, the Cleveland Clinic evaluation independently, to be able to just prove concept, to get an engineer, to get the equipment that we need through the funding and be able to put a team together to show proof of concept with a functional prototype.
Great. And a couple of questions from our audience this evening. Questions around the vacuum strength itself. So one, how strong is the vacuum? Does it cause bruising? Is there a risk of failure? And then another question related to that, how do you work around the vacuum, so to speak, and still maintain that vacuum effect? I mean, clearly you showed in one of your pictures the ability to kind of move the tissue around. So talk a little bit more about that.
So each area of the body is going to have a different need. One of them would be, for example, let's say you're doing a carpal tunnel, you can almost put a box on there and create that suction and be able to just do the surgery almost, again, instead of insufflation, which may be very difficult to do in that small area and maybe harmful to our nerve to get compressed. You put suction on there and be able to pull the skin very much like an assistant would. And that would be worked out in the lab to be able to see which areas of the body are going to have different strengths of suction needed. For example, body can tolerate in a short time span 500 millimeters of mercury, but maybe a shorter span, maybe 60 or a longer span of time, a smaller amount. So that would just depend on the length of surgery, which area of the skin. For example, back may tolerate more. Bruising may happen, very much like cupping, but those resolve.
All right, very good. A little echoing there. Well, Dr. Gadari, we really appreciate you being here this evening and presenting this to our network. I am guessing there are probably several folks in our audience that may be interested in being advisors. So we will give your contact information, as well as, again, I'm going to invite everyone when we're finished here to join each of these presenters in our networking lounge. So again, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna we're gonna do, hopefully be able to do both your poll, which we're gonna put up right now, and then after we complete your poll, we're also gonna put up the original poll for procedure card. So while folks are filling out this first poll, hopefully, again, many of you in the audience tonight will take some time to give feedback to Dr. Gadari as well as Dr. Williamson. We want both of them to get the feedback on their product and what they're trying to do, because I know all of these CEOs and founders really appreciate any input and advice that you can give them. So while we're doing that, what I'm going to do is just a little bit of wrap up so we can move on to our networking lounge and allow those of you that have joined us this evening to definitely continue to ask questions of our CEOs and our founders, as well as introduce yourself to others that are here in our audience tonight. It's a great way to get to know one another, as well as these companies, the CEOs and the founders. So, to that end, again, the way, once we go to the networking lounge, the way to enter a room is just simply to click on one of the chairs that you want to enter, and then you will be put into a virtual networking room to be able to ask questions. We will be sending outgoing communication via email with contact information, AngelMD profiles, as well as links to the Pitch Club videos that were presented tonight, as well as our Pitch Club extension videos. We also send out information about not only our Pitch Club website, but also our Pitch Club LinkedIn group. So the reality is we have multiple ways to interact after the event is over. It's pretty exciting. Again, all of these companies really appreciate those that are in our network to really lean in and help support them. We know that being an entrepreneur is not an easy thing to do, and bringing a new product or technology to market is also very difficult. So as much as we can lean in and give them our support, I think they would appreciate it. Lastly, I think Jennifer put up our AngelMD YouTube channel, which has all of not just the videos from tonight. We'll have the videos from tonight, but our Pitch Club extension videos as well, and previous Pitch Clubs. So if you missed one and you want to learn about Pitch Club innovation in infectious disease, you can go back and look at that one. So again, not only our Pitch Club website, but our AngelMD YouTube channel will have all of these videos for you to go take a look at. And finally, our next Pitch Club is Tuesday, August 31st, again, 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and it's going to be innovations in biotechnology. We have a ton of very cool companies that'll be coming up for that night. As I mentioned, our numbers of companies that are applying have exploded, and so we're getting the best of the best. And speaking of that, I want to thank Dr. Gadari, Jeff Levine, and Dr. Williamson for being with us this evening and sharing your companies, your technology, your insights with us. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to our networking lounge so we can continue the conversation. Thank you all again for being here tonight.